Putin is ambushed because his loyal officers, they simply had enough. They sabotaged and betrayed their own forces. There is a sharp decline in the situation for Russians in the south, and the final breach is almost complete. But more about all this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. So, we have this ex-Russian military expert who is also expert, obviously, in bio-warfare. His name is Igor Nikulin, and he is basically saying that America is developing a new bioweapon targeting specifically Russians, which will include all the major viruses in the past combined, and will be much complicated and lethal than the one which caused the pandemic. You know which I'm talking about. According to him, Americans obviously developed these viruses on the territory of Ukraine. I mean, why not? Where else, right? And that according to the documents that Russian soldiers are capturing every single time they defeat Ukrainians. I mean, yeah, every single time they defeat them. That's Russian propaganda. He sees that the number of these virus components only keeps increasing, making it even more and more effective. And my question to him, how will this be transported? My answer would be by mosquitoes. Maybe headed by one annoying creature, Shoigu mosquito, who is he does not want to give up and still flies around my apartment. Here you go, little troublemaker. Oh, and also, if you are from the US, please let us know in the comments if you have any knowledge of this thing happening. Or if on the other hand, you think that the Russian propaganda came with yet another ridiculous statement. Can you please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I will take a look at the statistics of my most recent subscriptions just to see how many of us common sense thinking people here are. You can also follow me on Instagram to see how I live outside of YouTube. The link is down below. But okay, jokes aside, now let's talk about some good and bad news about the involvement of other countries in this war, and then I'll give you a quick update from the east and south of the country and the grand betrayal by the Russian officers. And first of all, if you remember from my previous episode, American M1 Abrams tanks already arrived in Ukraine, also confirmed by Zelensky, and the total number of these tanks will be 31. In the meantime, US has approximately around 6,000 of them. And obviously, I'm not saying that America needs to give every single one of them to Ukraine. 31 is also a lot, so thank you so much. But if Americans themselves, they want Ukrainians to achieve a significant breakthrough as soon as possible, it will require at least one tank battalion. But at the same time, according to Kirill Budanov, 31 is just the beginning. There is a very big probability that Americans might send more of their M1 Abrams tanks in the future, and these tanks are extremely agile. They have extremely good firepower, able to breach the steel plates up to 880 millimeters, which is huge. Speaking about another American company, General Dynamics, they want to start producing their infantry fighting vehicles called Scott along with Ukrainians. And then another country, Bulgaria, wants to send its faulty S-300 missiles and other ammunition to Ukraine because Bulgaria does not want to waste time repairing them, while Ukrainians, according to them, they do have the capabilities to restore it and then later use on the battlefields. And so, in the meantime, when a lot of Western countries, they do help Ukraine every single day, what Russians are doing? So, for example, you remember also from yesterday's episode, they started installing naval multiple launch rocket systems which are designed to be installed on ships. They started to install them on their ground vehicles, such as armored personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles. But because of their obvious incompatibility, they will be shooting very inaccurate at very short distances, and reloading will take a lot of time, making them to be very vulnerable targets. But unfortunately, there is bad news as well. So Iranian company which produces Shahed drones, they modified them, and now instead of the usual propeller sound that they're making when they're flying, they will be almost completely silent, which will be much more complicated for Ukrainian air defense to notice them and to intercept them. But okay, and now as promised, let me give you an update from the east of Ukraine, where Russian defense of Bakhmut completely failed, and then we'll go to the south of the country. But first of all, let's make a quick stop in the Ukrainian city called Lubny, where a local gas pipeline ruptured, causing a significant fire. Now let's go back to the east of Ukraine and refer to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that for a very long time there were no reported combat activities along Kupiansk-Svatove-Kreminna front line, but Russians, they had unsuccessful offensive operations next to Bakhmut and also Avdiivka-Donetsk front line. And speaking about Bakhmut itself, Ukrainians reportedly were able to destroy a big artillery firing position of Russians along with their assault group located next to Zaporizhia. And now please allow me to once again refer to my previous video, where, if you remember, Russians installed these literally volleyball nets trying to protect their positions against Ukrainian drones. And so apparently we already received a video about extreme ineffectiveness of these defenses, which showed that the Ukrainian drone literally flies past them, absolutely not being able to be intercepted by Russian nets, and he successfully targets a Russian tank. And in addition to that, we have this spectacular video of a Ukrainian 8th Regiment, which was showing its long fight inside Bakhmut, which was happening during the fall, winter, spring and this summer. The video itself is basically a compilation of the most active combat activities, which obviously are not allowed on YouTube, definitely not on my channel. And so if you want to see fully uncensored The Russian Dude episodes and also help me in my battle against YouTube censorship, you can always support my work and check my Patreon. It only starts at $4 per month. You have 1 week to see if you like it or not, completely for free, and the link will be down below. And as a result of all these combat activities, as you can see from this map, Ukrainians were able to liberate just a little bit more land to the east of Klishivka and Andriivka. We also have this video allegedly from the eastern front line, where a Russian tank is alone in the wide open field, making it extremely easy target for another Ukrainian drone. And going all the way down to Donetsk, another Russian multiple launch rocket system next to this city was destroyed by Ukrainians. But most importantly, according to the head of defense intelligence of Ukraine, Kirill Budanov, he is saying that the raids on the territory of Russia and its neighboring regions will only intensify in the near future, and he is referring to Russian opposition forces, such as, for example, Russian Volunteer Corps and the Freedom of Russia Legion. He is also referring to the most recent events on the territories of Kursk, for example, kinda hinting to us that it was actually Russian opposition forces behind these attacks instead of Ukrainians. And we will talk about another and even way more important diversion and ambush by Russian officers very soon. But for now, let me give you a quick update from the south of Ukraine, where according to Russians, they're experiencing a sharp decline in the situation. But first of all, allow me to mention another attack by Russians against the city of Odessa, and this one happened very close to the territory of Romania. At this time, as a result of this attack, at least 30 civilian cargo trucks were destroyed by Russians, and that the checkpoint between Ukraine and Romania was also temporarily closed. And just overall, Ukrainians were able to intercept 26 out of 38 Russian Shahed drones in the last 24 hours. But Ukrainians did respond with HIMARS. They were able to target a Russian military headquarters in the southern Kherson region, where there was a daily meeting between Russian officers, and reportedly they were able to eliminate 8 of them and heavily injure at least 7 of high-ranking officials. In addition to that, Russians continue to do their reconnaissance small raids along the Dnipro River using small motorboats, but Ukrainians, in response, they use extremely cheap drones. and they are able to target these ships, boats as well. Next we have the long-awaited update from Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and according to the head of International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, they do confirm the presence of the Russian mines on the territory of the plane. Finally. But as we go to the most intense combat zone of the Zaporizhia front line, next to Robotyne, Ukrainians using ATGM missiles were able to destroy a Russian tank next to Novoprokopivka. And just overall, according to the representative of the Ukrainian army from the southern direction, Alexander Shtupin, soon there will be extremely good news. He basically summarizes the current events on this front line is that Russians are bringing whoever they can and whatever machinery and artillery systems they can find just to stop the Ukrainian advancement. They're not even thinking about recapturing territories. And once again, according to him, at the very conservative estimations, Russians are losing anywhere between 6 to 10 artillery systems every single day. And if we do refer to the Russian sources from Zaporizhia Robotyne frontline, they also talking about the so-called sharp decline in the situation. And you already know it, whenever Russians are using these fancy words to cover the truth, it only means that the actual situation is rather devastating, to say the least. But wait, there is more. Because, according to the British intelligence report, Ukrainians intensified their attacks against the Russian Black Sea Navy, which culminated with them targeting a Black Sea Navy headquarters of Russians located in Sevastopol. And even though, for now, just for now, technically, the Russian Black Sea fleet is still capable of performing its regular duties, but they now have to be extremely much more secure in whatever they are doing. So it will take them much more time to prepare the future attacks, and this will be not as effective, most likely, as it used to be in the past. And here is the most interesting part, because according to a Ukrainian partisan movement called SABOTAGE, the ones responsible for correcting the Storm Shadow missiles attacking the Russian Black Sea Navy headquarters in Sevastopol, it was actually Russian officers themselves, who simply had enough of the sword, of the stupidity of the orders from above and Putin himself, so they were offered a pretty sizable amount of money, maybe 100,000 rubles, which is like $1,000 US. Of course, it was more than that. And so long story short, they betrayed their own forces, revealed the position of these headquarters, they gave the exact coordinates to Ukrainians. Once again, all this according to the partisan movement SABOTAGE. And as a result of this, the headquarters was fully destroyed. For obvious reasons, the names of these Russian officers are not revealed to the public, otherwise they will drink some Russian tea or they will be very not careful standing to open windows on high floors. But it did happen, and most likely Ukrainians will not be able to perform such precise attack without the help from the inside. Because, honestly, if you once again take a look at those videos of that attack, you will see that the attacks were so precise, none of the other civilian infrastructure nearby was affected. Which just once again confirms the fact about the increase of anti-war mentality among the Russian soldiers. And not just soldiers at this point, but also the officers. The entire Putin's war at this point is being held together by the alleged loyalty of his generals to him, so as soon as they start betraying and ambushing him, I think this will be a domino effect. Only it takes only one person to start doing this, so it will be very curious to see which one of Russian generals will initiate the downfall of Putin's regime, and I will be here happily reporting on this event, so if you don't want to miss them, just please consider subscribing to my channel. It only takes one click. Thank you so much, patrons, for all your support, and see you tomorrow.